women now account for about 40% of the 100 million X-rated videotapes rented each year. Until recently, the San Jose, California city government was giving a $2,500 a month economic development subsidy to 3 pornographic businesses: the Pussycat and Pink Cat theaters and the Oasis sex shop and arcade. The city removed them from the list of stores to receive the subsidy, and the owners of the 3 establishments are expected to sue. The United States is a nation that outlaws school prayer and tolerates child prostitution. What will its judgment be for these offenses against God? The war has to be waged at every level because our people are vulnerable because of their sins. And what discourages me more than anything else is the television preachers and those not on TV who do not address those issues, who do not focus their religious zeal on the healing of society, but rather perhaps on the healing of their bodies or the telling of stories about Jesus and how Jesus saves. While they are busy saving souls, bodies are rotting, and so is this nation. It is tragic. St. Germain says that Armageddon is in full swing. You need not wait for nuclear war, the destruction of the temple of man and the child and the youth through drugs, through rock, through Satanism and witchcraft, through all of the indoctrination of the anti-light. This is the destruction of souls without even the declaration of war by the superpowers. Today we are in the time of troubles which Arnold Toynbee saw during the decline of civilizations. The circumstances that preceded the fall of Rome bear many similarities to 20th century America. She too suffered moral decay, class struggle, a trade deficit, despotic bureaucracy, stifling taxes, and consuming wars. Rome's educated classes were depopulated through abortion, infanticide, and family limitation. Our Supreme Court opened a Pandora's box when it changed abortion from a serious crime to a constitutional right. Now, in the name of a higher quality of life, we seriously consider legalizing the practice of euthanasia against the old and infanticide against the newborn. As a result of abortion, our population will be much older in the coming decade. Our military will have a dangerously diminished pool of able-bodied young men to draw from. Furthermore, recent studies show that American children and youth are the most unfit and unhealthy in the developed world. TV, drugs, and junk food have combined to wreck their bodies before they are adults. Will we be forced to defend our land with soldiers other than our own citizens? When Rome no longer produced enough strong warriors, she had to hire mercenaries. When the armies of Rome were no longer Roman, her security declined. She was conquered from within by the barbarians who had been allowed to settle there, who multiplied within her borders and refused to resist the oncoming armies comprised of their own kinsmen. It is often argued that the unique character of our time is that we have the technological capacity to destroy all life on earth. Because of that, it is clearly the unique character of our time that every individual must come to grips with the question of suicide. Each of us must determine whether by default we will pursue policies that lead inevitably to national and hence personal suicide. We may not cause a war, but we may be the generation who is guilty of not preventing one, guilty of committing suicide through default. Let us consider then Hamlet. In addition to being the world's most famous play, it contains the world's most eloquent discussion of suicide. As you know, Hamlet is confronted by the ghost of his recently deceased father, the King of Denmark. The ghost tells his son that he was killed by his brother Claudius, who usurped his throne and then hastily and incestuously married Queen Gertrude, Hamlet's mother. The ghost orders Hamlet to avenge his murder by killing Claudius. The tension of the play derives from Hamlet's puzzling delay in carrying out the command of his father's ghost. In one of Shakespeare's most dramatic monologues, Hamlet contemplates his course of action. To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing end them. In this soliloquy, Hamlet considers three courses of action. Death, he reasons, is a consummation devoutly to be wished when one considers the misery of human existence. He is wondering whether or not he should commit suicide rather than commit murder to avenge his father's death. He rejects suicide because of the dread of something after death. In other words, death may be preferable to an unhappy life, but only if death brings oblivion, and that is not certain. Then Hamlet debates the relative morality of two other courses of action. The first is passive acceptance of outrageous fortune. In this case, he would do nothing and accept the status quo. The second is just the opposite. Take direct and positive action against a sea of troubles, and by opposing, end them. None of the courses of action appeals to Hamlet. He rejects passive acceptance. However, he seems to have great difficulty taking the positive action to which he has apparently committed himself. This hesitancy leads to his death. It is generally accepted that Hamlet would not have lost his own life had he promptly killed Claudius, nor would the wholesale bloodshed that marks the second half of the play have taken place. By his inability to take direct action, Hamlet effectively commits suicide, even if only by default. He did not choose to be vigorously enough. He did not take the tide that comes in the affairs of men, which taken at its crest leads on to fortune. Why did he procrastinate? This is one of the great unresolved problems of literature. Of course, we can see that Francis Bacon, who authored the Shakespearean plays, was far more concerned that this generation see the consequences of hesitancy, and that hesitancy can be physical and spiritual suicide, than in having a happy ending. Theories have been offered, but each one only partially accounts for Hamlet's procrastination. Nevertheless, the play is a dramatic success, since it mobilizes, as all good drama must, the forces of the subconscious in such a way that audiences identify with Hamlet and accept his struggle as their own. And well they should, because we are all in that position at some point of our lives. Every viewer sees something of Hamlet within himself, both his moral quest for the right course of action and his wish for death. Whatever the reason or reasons for Hamlet's delay, it is related to his reluctance to accept his mission, which has become his duty or dharma, the one single act that he is born to fulfill. Hamlet is more than a simple play of revenge. It is a reenactment of a worldwide myth of a hero born to set right a world out of joint in order to expiate the sins of society. In Claudius' act of murder, we see the symbolic embodiment of all sins, and in his sexual indiscretions, the sign of a society infected by a pervasive evil. Hamlet is called upon to avenge his father in the larger context of purging Denmark of its moral rot. This approaches the heart of the problem. Hamlet has a mission and a mandate for action, but he is bitter about his fate. Bitterness about one's fate is fatal. Whatever is your fate, accept it, run with it, and outpicture the highest aspect of that configuration of life that you can. If you are bitter about your fate, or angry that you are in a position or have a sense of injustice, you will lose the cool for an alignment with Christ that allows you to vanquish the enemy at that point, even if it means cutting the Gordian knot. There is a solution to every problem, but if you feel that your being in the midst of the problem is a cosmic injustice, you won't have the attunement to discover the solution and your reason for being in that position. After receiving his injunction from his father's ghost, Hamlet says, "The time is out of joint, O cursed spite, that ever I was born to set it right." I'm at the wrong place at the wrong time. Woe is me. Why do I have to do something about this? Remember that famous line on the radio? What a revolting development this is. How many heard that said? Who was it? The Life of Riley, yep. Hamlet is an analogy for our time. Throughout this nation, debate has raged about the morality of nuclear weapons. The inability of our nation to come to grips with this problem has led to a series of military decisions that have placed us at risk to a Soviet first strike and blunted our will to erect a strategic defense. Like Hamlet, we have a mandate for self-defense and a mission to defend freedom worldwide. We may not accept the notion that the world cannot live half slave and half free, but the Soviets have. They have determined to destroy all free nations, since they cannot take the chance that their own subjects might discover en masse that there is a better system and cast off the yoke of communism to obtain it. As Saint Germain said, the Soviets are prepared to fight and win a nuclear war, and we are not. Like Hamlet, we must decide. We have to make a decision. I have been in the position of having to make a decision, and a difficult decision, and I'd rather not make it. I'd rather just see what happens. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. You have to make decisions. If you don't make decisions, you'll be on the defensive, and sons of God need to be on the offensive. We must decide whether we're going to commit national suicide, accept the status quo, or take direct action and deploy a strategic defense, knowing that delay in making this decision may be a disguised form of suicide. America, are we committing suicide today? Yes, we're in the process, but there is still time to retreat. There is time to turn back and not slit our wrists, not hang ourselves, not be moles crawling in the ground, waiting to suffocate and be run over. America, you are in the act of suicide now. All of your leadership, all of your people, all of the noise that is lulling you to sleep. America, you are committing suicide. Why are you doing this? Why? Tell us, tell God, tell yourself, why are you doing this? Have you no reason to live and live eternally in God? If you don't have a reason, we, the keepers of the flame, are going to give you a reason. We're going to tell you why to live. America, when it comes to strategic defense, learn the lessons of Hamlet. You're making the same mistake. You are reluctant to accept the mandate to set things right, to defend yourself against the ever-growing threat of a Soviet first strike attack, and then to purge the earth of tyrants and their totalitarian systems. America, if we delay much longer in putting on a strategic defense, Hamlet's fate may be ours. To be or not to be, that is the question Americans must face, decide, and act upon now. Now is the accepted time of our salvation, else freedom may perish from the earth. Keepers of the flame, in the name of Saint Germain, let us wake up America.
You've been watching The Coming Revolution in Higher Consciousness with Elizabeth Clare Prophet.